Politicians don't think that much of Haiti. But has American policy towards Haiti really ever changed over the decades? Doris, to you first.
I mean, what we're seeing Joe Biden saying there isn't much different, and it's really not realistic because the U.S. had interest in Haiti for quite some time. In the 1800s, they would have taken control of Navassa Island, which definitely bankrupted the country because of the importance and the richness of guano, which was found on that island. We also saw the United States occupy Haiti for quite some time, from 1915 to 1934, and then again it would have backed a dictator in the country in 1957. So we cannot actually realistically say that the U.S. has no interest in Haiti, because it has had interest in that little Caribbean territory for quite some time.
Danny, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Doris is 100% correct. If what Joe Biden was saying in 1994 was true, why has the U.S. done everything to invade, occupy, sanction, and recolonize Haiti over and over, train from the Tonton Macoutes to the modern day forces of repression? They work very closely with Jovenel Moïse. So I think we have to contextualize these 15,000 survivors and refugees of imperialism who were in Del Rio, Texas. They didn't leave their homeland voluntarily. They were forced to leave. So this is not Biden's migrant crisis. This is a crisis of imperialism and a failed neo-colonial model.
Now, Danny, staying with you, can you give us more context, the historical context of the migration flow out of Haiti? I mean, it doesn't sound like it's anything new, but do the Haitians typically come here, or where does the diaspora go?
Well, post-2010, the diaspora really expanded. It was no longer just Miami and Brooklyn, New York. You had an influx of Haitians because of the earthquake into Chile, into Brazil, into Mexico. But now we've seen with the pandemic all types of economic crises in Chile, in Brazil. So you had this flow of Haitian families, some of whom who haven't been in Haiti now for 11 years or more. They had this hope they could somehow get into the U.S. And why into the U.S.? Well, following the very resources that have been usurped from Haiti for centuries now, first by French colonialism, later by U.S. neocolonialism. This morning, for example, the Haitian good, the currency of Haiti, it was 98.5 for $1 US. So many Haitian families feel like they have no other choice but try to flee their homeland.
And Doris, the media seems to be positioning, the U.S. as the go-to country to help Haiti. Is it? I mean, are there other stronger Caribbean nations that can or do step in?
We definitely have the Caribbean community, which has been advocating for non-intervention in the Caribbean, because we usually talk about Haiti as being the poorest in the Western Hemisphere. What we have seen, though, is that the Caribbean has rallied behind Haiti for quite some time, but with the international interference in that country's affairs, it's been quite difficult, because being very small and having very small economies compared to the United States, France, the European Union, it means that they can bark, but they can't necessarily bite.
Well, what about, like Danny brought up, the colonial powers? We know that France was a major colonial player there in Haiti. Have they done anything to help with the economic situation?
What France has done from Haiti is take and take and take, and it's very sad to see. I mean, looking at the way these migrants have been treated, and it's really a problem that was created by the United States and France in and of itself. When Haiti began its revolution and gained its independence in 1804, what we saw was France forcing this country to repay them 150 million francs in some sort of terminology that they coined reparations, because they lost a country's resources that was actually responsible for providing them with half of their GDP. And so it's interesting right now that we have AUKUS going on and the United States and France differing on these issues, but they definitely agree on how they have treated Haiti.
Wow. And Danny, you know, in terms of the Haitians along the southern border right now, it would appear they are being deported immediately. No moves to allow them to petition to stay. I know some people are going to say that this is consistent with U.S. law for what they consider economic migrants. But is this humane? Is it fair?
There's nothing fair or humane about it. We've seen the harrowing racist images which harken back to the Jim Crow South, which harken back to what Doris was pointing about the 1915 and 1934 U.S. military occupation of Haiti. Haiti is a country of people who've given so much inspiration, not just to the Caribbean and the Americas, but the entire world. The historical underdog can fight back and can indeed win. So to see these images with the Border Patrol whipping Haitian survivors and resistors and lecturing them about going back to Haiti and what they should do, when most people in the U.S. have no clue how intimately connected U.S. history and Haitian history are. So I think this is an important educational moment for us to intervene in what's really a monologue in the mainstream media.
And Doris, I'll give you the final word. What comes to your mind when you see these images of the Haitians being virtually immediately deported?
I mean, more than being deported, the treatment these people have been meted out with from U.S. Border Patrols. We've seen horses running towards children. We've seen U.S. Border Patrol officials. I heard one of them specifically say to a woman, "This is why your country is the way it is, because you have women doing this." And they're failing to realize, and they're clearly ignorant to the fact that the United States is clearly involved in the current economic crisis and political crisis that Haiti is sitting in for this period of time. We are talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of U.S. and foreign interference in Haiti, and it was really disheartening. It's actually the saddest set of images I've ever seen in a very long time.
All right, we'll leave that right there. Danny Shaw and Doris Polo, thank you both. Great analysis.
Thank you for having us.